Good afternoon. Here I'm working with Tiggy and creating the frame. One of your fellow patrons requested that I go over some of the details on how I create the frames for the pieces that I do. So here we go. First of all, I cut all of the wood. Now you're going to have four sides, so four pieces of wood. Each piece of wood is going to be more or less, two pieces are going to be more or less the same as the other two pieces. Now those two pieces in this case were probably approximately 10.5 in width and about 13 in height. So I'll explain how I did that. So my initial measurements were 8.5 across, 11.25 high. I add 2 inches to those numbers so that I can cut my corners correctly. And each corner will be cut with a diagonal so that I can create the frame meeting up with the other frame sides. So I cut at those measurements. That said, I went ahead and cut a bunch of slats like this. And these are the pieces that I clean up. I usually create approximately 1/2 inch here. And the length is determined by the length of the side that you're working on. For example, this one, I created one of these to match the length of it. And then this one, same. So what I did then was I glued these slats to the top of the wood, holding by clamp until they dried. These over here were done slightly differently because with a custom frame such as this, I needed to start high with this one because the depth or the depth from top to bottom is so large compared to any other part of the carving. So then I cut these when they were long like this. I cut and shaped them, cut them out on a bandsaw, and then I used that cutout piece up here to overshadow, made a line on that, and cut it out on the bandsaw. Then I applied them here and glued in place. That's how I got both of the slops on here. If you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to share that with you or help you understand it better. Just let me know. So now that I had these two, these will eventually be cut at 45s as well to match up, and then they will stick in just perfectly here. The smaller piece is the top. So the way I determined how to go down and how much I would use was I determined how much I wanted to stick out of the carving to stick out, and I determined about 2 inches is good. So when I did that, the 2 inches turned out to be just right, well, at least for me. Nose will stick out, the ears are still protected, and the rest of it will match up just fine, like that. So in this particular case, this carving lays flat against a wall or a surface or what have you. But because it's so flat, that's how I determined, in many cases, that's just how I determine how to create my work. So start with a flat block, use the flat side as your stop point, and then you create a frame around it. For example, if you had a carving and you wanted it to sit on its side, for example, like this, then at this point, to create a frame, if this is what you were looking at from the forward view, if this is what you wanted to be seen when you looked at the part or the piece, then you would have to create a frame that allows you to let this sit in a way that creates that look. So you could create this block of wood, determine the height that you want, plus the top portion here, which is approximately 1/4 inch, plus another 1/4 inch on the back side, so that when this does stick out, you have room back here. You want room back here because the room will allow it to come in and out of the frame. You don't want it sticking out past the frame when you got it on. You want some movement ability here. Also, I tend, when I have missing foreground, when I don't have much foreground or I've cut away the foreground, I put in some felt, or rather felt, just cheap cotton or something in here all black so that when you put it down, it's very clearly and cleanly set. So if you do that, then having a little room here is good. Okay, so I like a little room here. And if you were going to make a frame like that, you would want to have a piece of wood that is the height, minus both sides, is the height that you want here. So you would cut that length, then you would apply your tops, and keeping the bottom, apply your tops, and then all of your sides. So your sides would also have to have that length. But you remember, the back side is always completely flat to the ground. And what you can do is you can put a wedge in here, or you can put a piece of wood atop here, like this, if you want, so that it could lean on this when it's in there. But the back is always flat. The other side is always completely flat. So if it's completely flat on the back side, you just create your angle to meet up with all sides. So I can also help you with that if there are further questions about that. But for the most part, I wanted to give you a basic understanding of how the frames were created, and I hope that helps. And I will get busy on completing this guy. All right, thank you.